Hello, and welcome to the Nerd Podcast, where we talk about movies, themes, and more. Are you excited to hear us talk about the new Puss in Boots, The Last Wish movie? Well, I hope you are, or why else would you have clicked on this video? I am Daniel, and joining me is your other host, Eric.
Hello.
And this is the Noted Podcast.
Hey. Bow.
So today, Eric, in the video, we'll just start by talking about the overall tones of the movie, then discuss the unique art style, break down some of the main cast and characters, and then audience, Eric and I will jump into the main parts, beginning, the middle, and the end. But before we do that, Eric, you wanted to kind of talk about the Dreamworks intro?
Yes. Okay, dude. I think that this is like the best intro to movies. Like, you know how there's like the Pixar one where it's like the little like little lamp thingy?
Yeah, the eye jumping on.
Yeah, like that's really cute. And then you also have like the Disney where like old school Disney used to be like better intros in my opinion, but like it's like I feel like this one really it encompasses all of their best bangers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And it just it's so good.
Shows
it's
like
so
the
good.
villains, shows How to Train Your Dragon, goes through
Yeah.
Kung Fu Panda, and they're kind of like floating around in like an astral place.
It literally looks like dreams in works. Does that? Yeah. Okay.
And then it ends with the classic boy fishing on a moon, which I've always loved that.
Yeah, getting lifted up by the balloons.
Yeah. So we're gonna hop into the first section, the theme of the movie. Despite this being a kids movie, the movie was all about death, not fearing it, but respecting it and cherishing what you have. That fame, glory, and riches don't make you happy. It's the family you make along the way that brings you true happiness. Some people were getting angry about the ratings of this movie being PG instead of PG-13, which I think is a very interesting conversation because I have not heard that about a DreamWorks movie before, and it's like, have you watched Shrek? And so we'll address that later in the video. Eric, do you agree with the breakdown of the key elements? Is there anything you think I'm missing that we should add there, or theme or moral of the movie?
Yeah, I would say that that's pretty much all it is. At least for our main character and like the main arc of the story is to just like to overcome inevitable fear kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't think they referenced it at all, did they?
No, I don't think that they did. I know that they referenced a lot of like Shrek moments and stuff like that, like him on the back of Donkey in Shrek 2 when he's on Donkey, but when he's a horse.
That flashback to that scene is their Naruto on the swing flashback.
Honestly,
they go to that well
like
so
3 or 4
often.
times. Yeah, it's awesome.
And if you don't know what we're talking about, if you're not an anime fan, sorry, you won't get it.
Get caught up.
New anime fans of Naruto will definitely know that swing set, damn swing set.
It's got about 15 minutes of screen time.
Dude, it is arguably the most like reoccurring scene in the whole whole anime.
And it's always the same tune every time it shows up.
And the worst part about it too, it's not like it's a 2-second clip or anything. It's always like 30 seconds to a minute. It's like, why are you wasting so much time on this gosh dang swing set?
It's like 15 seconds, and while it's showing it, Naruto's like, I've just always wanted to be the Hokage, and you were in my way, but that's okay.
We can be friends.
Yeah, no taijutsu. But speaking about anime in general, one of the things that's interesting about this one is that it's more anime-esque, because it's kind of like Spider-Verse, yeah?
Yeah, that's a great segue into our second section, which is the art style. Thank you, Eric.
Yeah.
So this movie takes on like the Into the Spider-Verse art style,
which is
with it. Oh
awesome.
yeah, I love it. I mean, I know it's kind of a lot of movies have been doing that. I haven't watched any
No,
other movie that
nope.
have done it myself. It's this movie taking inspiration from like the anime stylization with a combination of like a 2D comic book style, just like Into the Spider-Verse did.
Yeah.
In combination, it is at 12 frames a second, pretty much the whole movie, from
Mm-hmm.
what I could find, which is nearly identical to what Into the Spider-Verse was at. Into
Yeah.
the Spider-Verse also had like a lot of scenes at 24 frames a second,
Yeah.
for many of its scenes, but I couldn't find anything confirming that Puss in Boots did the same thing.
So
Um,
I know that in Into the Spider-Verse, they small little thing.
yeah,
So
yeah.
before he became like learned how to swing, every time Miles was in the spider suit, he was at 12 and everyone else was at
Oh,
24.
yes.
So everyone
Yes.
looked smooth and comfortable, but he looked jagged
Yeah,
and
that's
like
it.
didn't know
Uh-huh.
how to swing. But then in the forest when they're running away from Doc Ock,
He starts to get the hang of it, and that's when it
he
speeds up,
and
right?
then that's when he matches the 24 frames per second along with everybody else.
Which is
It's
such a cool
beautiful. It's
visualization thing.
beautiful. Yeah, and I think with this one how you're saying that it's all a little choppy, and I think that's the thing that really like the background seems smooth, but then the way that the characters jet kind of across the
Hmm.
screen makes it look jagged, which I think is the 24 or the 12 frames.
Yeah, I think
But the
this movie's
background is smooth. Yeah.
exactly. I think this movie's just at like the characters are just at 12 frames a second.
Mm-hmm. At
Um,
least during fight scenes, not during dialogue. I don't
yeah,
think
yeah, during fight
dialogue
scenes.
dialogue looked. This movie's beautiful.
Yeah, it takes heavy inspiration from Into the Spider-Verse, and I think it fits this movie very well. The biggest difference between the two is that Puss in Boots uses a very a brighter color palette
Yeah,
than
and
Into the
very vivid.
Spider-Verse does.
Yeah.
No, totally. I mean, it's a good thing to mention considering that like this is obviously paying homage to that.
It really is. Yeah.
Um, and I especially love this choice and direction for the art style for the fight scene in the beginning when Puss is fighting the big giant, and it feels straight out of Attack on Titan.
That's facts.
Which at one point that it has Puss running up a colossal chain towards the giant, which is attached to a church bell that giant is using like a flail. And it's such a cool fight scene.
It
And
really is.
all in all, this is a huge change of pace for the Shrek franchise when it comes to the art style. I don't expect them to do this type of art style for the Shrek movies, and I honestly hope they don't. It's a very nice and welcome change of pace for this installment in the universe. I don't expect them to do it for Shrek, and I hope they don't.
Yeah, I was actually thinking at the very beginning of the movie because I had if small little spoiler if you haven't watched the movie, go watch the movie. But at the very end when they do the whole like far far away bit, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It really made me think like if they make a like if they do make another
Hmm.
one, are they gonna carry over this art style into that, or are they gonna make it more like the original but maybe have Puss look
Oh,
like that? You know what I'm saying? So like kind of have different art
yeah.
styles merging with each other because technically they're fairy tales. So like it would make sense if they had different artists, you know?
I I can't imagine they will
It would be
do
insane though.
that. I think the Shrek movie will be more polished, obviously a more
Yeah.
like up to date version of the style, but even in the original Shrek animation was always so like polished
Yeah. Yeah.
comparative to a lot of animation of that time. So I expect them to do a similar thing.
Yeah.
What do you say, Eric? What do you think of the art of this movie? Did you enjoy it? Do you think it fit? Did you hate
Oh,
it?
it was
What are
beautiful.
your
I
opinions?
loved it. I had no quarrel with it. I thought that everything about it was solid. I've ever since watching the first Spider-Verse movie, I've really wanted um like 2D animated, like just 2D animated movies or just in general to adapt this kind of style because
Hmm.
not only does it bring in like anime-esque influence, but
Yeah.
it also just looks better. Like it really does combine like 3D animation and 2D drawing beautifully to where it still looks hand drawn, but you know that it's easier for an artist to do because they're just drawing over a model instead of having to create the entire model. Does that make sense? Given I'm not like a professional, but I watch Corridor Digital, I kind of know things. But
it's similar. Sorry, not to cut you off. Continue.
No, you're fine. You're good.
That reminds me of kind of the way Avatar: The Last Airbender's animation is. Because a lot of the scenes in that show are in 2D, but a lot of the big fights are actually 3D, like CGI fights, like the fight with
like
the Fire Lord.
The terrain. The terrain is 3D, but the characters are 2D.
Yeah. And they mix like the 2D and 3D quite a bit in that show.
The third section, roles and who played them. Puss in Boots is played by Antonio Banderas, correct? Did I say his name right?
Antonio Banderas.
Hey, Puss is our hero, first introduced in Shrek 2, and has his own movie previous to this, but whatever.
You don't need to watch it to understand this movie.
Yeah, no, this is a very standalone. It's beautiful. Puss is our overconfident main character who literally laughs at death. Nothing shakes him, or so we think. He is the life of the party and seems like he just doesn't take anything seriously. And most of all, Puss is in love with the idea of himself, Puss in Boots. So he is...
Yeah.
He's infatuated. He's infatuated with himself.
He's everyone's favorite narcissist.
Yes. Yes. And then we have Kitty Softpaws, played by Lady
Samala Haluk.
I believe you. Softpaws. I hate pronouncing names. I always get them wrong. And
sorry, continue.
Softpaws is our female hero. She's the counterpart to Puss in Boots. Someone who is cunning, and I would say, would you say even more so?
I would say at least in this film, yeah, she's more cunning and swift than he is in this film.
She's on top of everything.
Oh yeah.
As much as she is cunning, she is swift. She is acrobatic, and she's sneaky as hell, dude. At one point in the movie, she's in this case that's being like passed around, and then Puss opens this box, and then we just see her eyes open because she's been like Mission Impossible, like dun 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 dun, and like it's just so good. It's so good. Unlike Puss, she doesn't seem to have this narcissist ideal version of herself that she latches onto, but is more in self-preservation than for glory. She has no claws.
Sorry, I didn't write that super well, but
no, you're good. I also got mixed up.
The reason she does like thievery and stuff is more in self-preservation than glory, like how Puss does this for the glory. She's doing this in more like self-preservation. Yeah,
because she doesn't trust anybody, and that falls a line into her wish later on.
Yep.
Then we have Perito, played by Harvey Guillen. Guillen,
yeah. Harvey Guillen.
Why you got L's in your last name, boy?
That is why I wrote the phonetic way to say it right next to it, because I also saw that and I was like, huh?
Perito is a ball of happiness and annoying as fuck. He just wants friends. He just wants friends and to be happy. There isn't much more to him but that. He's just a simple kickable dog. Yep, and that's about it.
Yeah, Perito is like the character in this movie that represents the purest form of altruistic behavior, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's puntable. I'll say that. The fact he's puntable. I loved him, but jeezums.
He's annoying for 90% of the film, but the 10% he isn't, he's lovable as hell. I love every second with him on screen, but also at the same time, I hate it.
I just want to put a muzzle on him. Because I'm just like, dude, I get it.
Oh yeah, they do. They walk that balance very well. Like it's like the donkey thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
how you want to put a muzzle on donkey, but also you just love them.
Exactly. Exactly. Goldilocks is played by Florence Pugh. Goldilocks Goldilocks in this movie has a unique take. Because the original story is just like, three bears. Oh, I need a place to sleep. I need porridge to eat. I go into house and boom, sleep bears. Ah. But in this case, it's not the same. The three bears actually take in Goldilocks as their daughter because they found her sleeping and they were like, oh, we'll take care of her. And so she is like the ringleader of the crime family.
Which I
And
love.
it's amazing. It's so good. They're like a little mafia and they're always talking about building the family business to be bigger and better. And it's awesome. But she fits in as one of the bears, so we think, kind of thing. And so they are also on the destiny to find the last wish, not witch. And then
Imagine if the end of the movie was just getting to a witch's hut and it's just a witch.
I would love it. I would have loved it. And then we
God,
have
it's not wish, it's witch. Gosh damn it.
And then we have Jack. What was his last name again? Horner. It's a little. I've never heard of this story ever. Actually,
I think it's made up.
I'm not gonna lie. I don't believe you because I think that everything in these movies are fictionally accurate. But I believe you.
Here, I'm googling it right now.
Okay.
Little Jack Horner is an actual fairy tale. I stand corrected. Continue.
Okay. Because dude, I feel like if anything, these movies are always correct in the sense of fictional fairy tales. Like everything we see in here is always something that has actually been written. Anyways, he's the big bad guy of this movie. He's a cravenistic. And Daniel, if you'd like to give the definition to this word.
Yeah, so I'm sitting in I'm just gonna give a little story behind it. I'm sitting in Starbucks and I'm writing this and I write cravenistic and I'm like, Google says I didn't spell that right. And then I Google it and I'm finding no results for it. I'm like, wait a minute, is this not a real word? And so I literally take my earbud out. I look at the lady waiting for her coffee. I'm like, hey, excuse me, ma'am. She's a bit older, probably like 40s or something.
If anything, that's better because that means she's been on the earth longer and
exactly,
she knows more words.
Exactly, which is why I singled her out. And I was like, hey, sorry to bother you. I'm just writing something. And I think I might have made up a word. Can you tell me if you've heard of this word? And I told her, she's like, I've never heard that word. She's like, but it sounds realistic. You could probably say and get away with it. And I'm like, yeah. And so my cravenistic in this degree is pretty much someone without a care stealing and pillaging with malicious and greedy intent.
Yes.
Which I think just sums up Jack Horner.
I like
pretty easily.
I like both of these words. Either way, he's a power hungry dude, and all he wants to do is take all the magic in the world for himself, and that's our bad guy, and that's it. So Daniel, out of these characters that we've listed, which is Puss in Boots, Kitty Soft Paws, Goldilocks, Perito, and the bad guy, who is your favorite character?
Out of the five, Puss in Boots. It's an easy answer. I do love Goldilocks. I think Soft Paws is awesome. Goldilocks is probably like out of the new characters in this.
Okay, I was gonna ask you.
She's my favorite out of the new characters. But Puss in Boots is my favorite character in general, just because I've loved him so much since Shrek 2.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I like it. So it's
favorite cameo has to be Jiminy Cricket. Sorry, continue.
No, you're good. You're good. So your main favorite is Puss, and then new addition was Goldilocks.
Exactly.
She had a pretty big role, kind of.
Yeah.
She was a good main side character. But then your favorite cameo was fucking Cricket. I love it.
What about you? What's your favorite character out of the five, or a character we didn't name?
Of course, Puss in Boots is my favorite because he's the main character and he's amazing. He has the best arc so far out of all of them. I would like out of all of the OG cast of like Shrek, Donkey, Puss, Fiona, and all that stuff. I think that he has the best stories, given he has been given more opportunities recently. But I like Puss the most.
So that leads us to our fourth section, which is the beginning of the movie. Now we'll actually start getting into the movie. I know we've talked for 25 minutes and haven't even gone to the movie, but that's just how we roll here at Noted. So the movie starts off with our hero Puss in Boots throwing a party in some mansion that is quickly revealed to be a king or prime minister or some political person in power. They didn't really identify exactly.
He was the governor.
Oh, governor.
Or the mayor. I use the governor or the mayor. When he walks in, Puss is like, "Oh, governor," or something like that.
Yeah. And he fights off all the soldiers. A gigantic rock giant's awakened, and Puss in Boots defeats the giant. And then, like we described earlier in our animation breakdown, then after killing the giant, Puss is killed by a bell falling on him. He wakes up and learns he's on his last of 9 lives, according to the doctor. He's died 8 times, which I love that concept that he actually has 9 lives.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It's
and
amazing.
And they roll through all 9 like the way he died, and like the fact he was a bodybuilder in one.
Sir. Gosh,
so funny.
Gosh, Daniel. Gosh.
Yeah,
Daniel.
Sorry, all 8 lives. I know, right? And then he wakes up, learns he then is confronted by a bounty hunter in a bar where he fights and defeats Puss in Boots. Puss in Boots runs away in fear after the wolf draws his blood for the first time in his life, or lives, because he talks about that no one has, earlier in the film, he says no one's ever touched Puss in Boots with a blade. And that quickly becomes untrue. He runs away once the wolf pushes the sword back and tells Puss to pick it up. And Puss then retires to a house of crazy cat lady.
Yes.
Where he has and before he goes in and becomes Pickles, he has a funeral for his gear and the legend that is Puss in Boots.
Yes, dude.
And Puss, while in retirement, to say the least, lets himself go. And that's when we meet Perito, a dog who's disguised as a cat. Perito is described in our character list in the beginning, and he chooses Puss to be his friend, despite the fact Puss repeatedly disagrees and states he does not want him. Goldie and the 3 bears show up and look for Puss in Boots to have him do a job for them, but can't find him, and even though they stare him literally in the face, but can't believe it's him because he's a shell of his former self. And that's when we hear the family talk about the job they needed him to do to get the map for the fallen star for the last wish. And the map is currently in Jack Horner's possession. So Puss unretires, gets his gear without his sword, because he left his sword with the wolf, and goes back to John Horner to steal the map. But, Perito, being the loyal friend he is, joins him.
This leads us to our 5th section, middle of the movie. Puss and Perito go to Jack's house. That is when we meet Jack. Jack is the villain, the man who collects magical items to every degree, which is beautiful. There's so many references. There's the Midas hand, like the thing that turns everything into gold. Baby unicorn horns that he uses as crossbow bolts. Crossbow bolts. Thank you. And gotcha. they turn people into confetti. That was so beautiful. The fact that he shot one of the 12 baker's dozen dudes in the ass, and then they went
just to see what it does.
And then they went.
That's what it does.
Yeah, it's so good. An all-seeing eyeball, so he can like track Puss through the dark forest. He has a phoenix, he has a bag of holding, he has magic cookies from Alice in Wonderland. And then he has just bottles of just shit.
Yeah, like potions and
yeah,
other creatures and stuff.
But Puss goes into his what, factory, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
It gave me Shrek 2 vibes when Shrek and Donkey go to the fairy godmother's potions factory. Yeah. So they go to his place to steal the map, and that is when Puss runs into Kitty Softpaws, and that's what I described earlier with her standing in the box. And so then they kind of fight over the map, but then that's when Goldie and her bears show up and break through the baby bear breaks through the glass and is like, you know. And then after a nail-biting escape happens, Kitty Softpaws agrees to join the team friendship, and the group is being chased by the bears and Jack. And the map leads them to the dark forest. Dun dun dun. And yeah, that is when we find out that the map reflects the holder.
Yep.
Is that a good descriptor?
So like
whoever holds it, it will change the path to the wishing star. So Softpaws gets it, and it's like 3 destinations that are just like wretched. It's like a river of acid, and then like something horrible, and then something else, and then star. And then Puss in Boots is like I forget what the first one was. It was like a lava river, and then like the 9 lives things that we see later in the movie. And then it's so good.
Yeah, because like Puss holds it and it becomes all like evil and like turgid.
Yeah.
And then Softpaws grabs it because she's like, give this to me, and her way is as bad.
Yeah, it's just horrible. Both of theirs are just shit shows.
Yep.
And then Perito gets it, and it's just like magical Candyland. Let's walk down the path of, literally like Candyland, like I
think one of them says
game.
The path of comfort.
Yeah,
like it's like it literally is meant to be as easy as possible.
It was such a good reference. But while on this journey, we learned the tragic backstory of Perito, and he was the runt of the litter, and they went to play hide and go seek one time, and he was just never found. So then he came back.
Never, quote unquote, never found.
Never found. So then he would just come back, and then they decided to play it again. But then this time, his owner decided to put him in a sock.
No, his litter mates.
No, I thought it was his owner. I didn't know.
I thought it was his litter mates, but
either way,
because he talks about his litter mates. But either way,
the collective group hated him, and they put him in a sock, put a rock in the sock, him in the sock, and threw the sock in a river. They killed him, but because he is an insufferable ball of happiness, he chewed through the sock and swam to the surface, and he's been playing hide and seek ever since.
Oh, you know what we didn't even mention?
He's wearing the sock.
Therapy dog?
Yes. No, yeah.
Yeah. He's a therapy dog and tries to have Puss rub his belly several times.
Yeah, at the very beginning of the movie, he's like, I just want to be loved, and I'm going to be somebody's therapy dog one day, or something like that. And that's exactly what he turns into for Puss.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. But the fact that he wears the sock that killed him the entire time,
so sad.
It's depressing. But then we see Jack and his baker's dozen Mad Max down the road, and use Jimmy.
Literally, pretty much.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful reference to Mad Max. Yeah. It's amazing. But he uses Jiminy Cricket, and he thinks that it's a locus of death. Right? He's like, go fly, my pretties, kind of thing, like a good Wizard of Oz one. And then Jiminy like kind of stands up and is like, hi, and then we get the conscious now of Jack as
And
Jiminy, and it's
I love when
beautiful.
he's explaining it to Jack. He's like, I pretty much just judge you.
Uh-huh. And then we also see Puss have a panic attack while this is during the large battle with everyone chasing our crew due to hearing the whistle from the wolf in the beginning of the movie. Right?
Yeah. So the big battle happened. Sorry, I kind of wrote that
No, you're good.
misjointedly. But yeah, the big battle happened. And during that battle, Puss has the panic attack due to the whistling.
Yeah. And then that is when Perito learns that the reason Puss and Soft Paws have bad blood is because Puss left her at the altar. And then Soft Paws overhears them talking to each other about this and how Puss like regrets this, and that for the first time Puss in Boots has ever felt fear was in that moment of like commitment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then
Puss in Boots, not afraid of death, but afraid of commitment.
I mean, yeah, who isn't? But Puss later he apologizes to Soft Paws. He apologizes to Soft Paws, and she takes it, and she's like, "Okay, it's okay. She wasn't there either." And then Puss was like, "Wait a minute, what?" That was one of my favorite parts. So she's like, "Oh yeah, no, I didn't show up either," and I was like, "Oh, nice. They're the same person."
Yeah.
They're the same. They're both terrified of commitment.
And
They're perfect for each other.
The sixth section of our video, the end of the movie. We see Goldie and the three bears talk about their crime family, beginning with their wish. And this is when we kind of see them reminisce on how they met Goldie and how they took they took her into their life when they reached their old cabin.
Because this is the point where they have the map now.
Yes.
Yeah, they stole it from the Team Friendship, and they're in front.
Exactly, and this is when we learn how close Mama Bear and Goldie are.
Mm-hmm.
And then Puss steals the map back, and the group gets split up because Perito gets taken hostage. And this is when we see Goldie and Baby start to chirp at each other, and Perito start, because they're all like they're Australian. They're like they have Australian accents, and then Perito starts chirping back.
Knuckle dragging, honey scrounging, grub, oafish, munching, mingy, nugget, and your snooter.
Because he wants to be involved, but takes it way too far. And this is when Papa's like, I like his stuff.
Yeah.
Because like
then the mom's like, can we keep him?
Yep. And when Perito starts going off, it's all just bleeped.
Yeah.
Pretty much the whole time.
Yeah. But
yes. And then they save Perito. She saves Perito and meets up with Puss after. And so now Puss is in this like crystal glass construction that is his trial he has to get through.
Yeah.
And in this is when we see him go to a room with like 8 mirrors, and all 8 mirrors are his past lives.
Yep.
And they start talking to him and start trying to get him to ditch Soft Paws and Perito. And so he can go get his extra 9 lives. And Puss, this is when we finally see Puss start to really verbally change his mindset. And he states he doesn't want to do that. And they start saying he's not a real Puss in Boots. And that's when the wolf shows up. And this is when we learn the wolf is actually Death himself. This is a kid's movie. And he's hunting Puss in Boots, and he's been hunting him.
He's been hunting him.
And he's the cause of all of his 8 lives, and that Puss never realized this because Puss in Boots laughs in the face of danger. And Puss frantically runs away out of the glass area, and this is when Soft Paws and Perito finally meet back up with Puss. But he runs away from them due to his fear. Mm-hmm. And now he's completely set on his 9 lives no matter what. And Soft Paws and Perito, specifically Soft Paws, is now like, yep, he's the same scumbag he always has been.
Yep.
He didn't change because she thought he was changing. She even mentioned that she likes the way he is now, and he's different than the guy she knew at the chapel.
Yeah. Yep.
And this is when we see Goldie finally admit her wish is for a real family because she doesn't fit in with the bears.
Yeah.
But Mama Bear convinces the rest of the family to help Goldie get her wish, despite her pretty much wanting to wish a different family from her family with them.
Yeah.
And holy fuck, that should not have hit as hard as it did.
Yeah.
It's such a sad scene. Why is this in a kids movie?
I mean, it's a good question, dude. Why is Death chasing a cat?
Dude,
you know?
it's such like, I didn't expect that to hit the way it did. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
And then Puss gets to the star first. But everyone pretty much meets up there at the same time.
Yeah.
And they all start to fight over the star.
I love the beginning of this fight scene, or one of the beginning, when he pulls out. This might be later or earlier in the movie as well, when he pulls out the sword of Excalibur, and he's like, "Yeah, yes, I left the rock on it," and then hits one of them.
Yeah, because he can't. He is obviously not worthy for the sword,
yeah,
so he just has the stone on the sword.
Yeah, then he just absolutely whops somebody. He's like, "Yes, I kept the rock on it." Yeah.
Yeah, dude. It's so, they have so many fairy tale references.
So many references that just make sense. It's so good.
And that's when Mama and Papa try to save him, but they're not able to. He starts falling through more. And Goldie has a decision between giving up her wish, because she has the map, she's about to say the words, or to save baby. And this is when she finally accepts that this is her family and saves them. And she's like, well, what about your wish? She's like, I got the family I need.
Yeah.
And then while this is happening, he tries to explain to Softpaws that he's being chased by Death, and that's why he left. And she's like, yeah, whatever, dude. And then Jack gets stuffed into his own magical briefcase of holding, which he's holding all of the magic items that he had in his office.
Yeah. It's great.
And then Death shows up, separates Puss in like this like arena pretty much in the middle of the star.
Yeah.
And starts fighting him. And this is my favorite fight scene in the movie. Just overall. And he pushes Puss in Boots' sword that he left with the wolf in the beginning of the movie back to him and says, pick it up. And just like in the beginning of the film, when Puss starts having all of his 9 lives flash in his eyes, instead of all the good memories of those 9 lives, it's all the memories of him being alone. And then he remembers all the good memories of him being with people, his friends, in this life.
Yeah.
And Wolf's like, oh, what, you're remembering your 9 lives? Your 8 lives? And he's like, no. And then he picks up the sword and he's like, I now have something to fight for. I'm fighting for this life and I won't let you take it from me.
The crowd goes wild.
Yeah, and then we get an epic fight scene with lots of acrobatics, and then
lots of tight zooms on faces Naruto sprinting.
Yep, this is like
the fight. Lot of anime fights. Yep.
This movie, like any of the big fights, are straight anime.
This movie is an anime. It's an anime.
I love it.
Can we just agree? It's an anime.
It's an anime.
It's not a DreamWorks movie. It's anime. It's a bunch of fucking
weebs,
anime lovers, and they're like, oh, let's make a Puss in Boots movie. As an anime?
Yeah, let's make Puss in Boots into a shonen anime is pretty much what they did.
Yeah, pretty much. And I'm here for it. For forever.
And then Puss disarms Death and pushes his sickle back to him. And he then proclaims, pick it up. Go on. Pick it up. And it's so hard. Goes so hard.
It does.
And then this is when Death starts to like have like a little like rage fit.
Yeah,
and
he kind of starts to panic.
Yep, he starts to panic a bit, and then I think the reason he panics isn't necessarily he's scared, but then more he realizes, shit, I can't kill him now.
Yep.
Because he then states, I was supposed to be fighting and finding an arrogant prick who thought he was immortal. Not this, not someone who respects his life.
Yeah.
And then he's like, well, I'll leave you be. Enjoy, goodbye, Puss in Boots. Enjoy your last life. And then he leaves.
which is like the exact opposite to him in the I'm just gonna call it a glass onion again because it's just a beautiful reference. When he's talking with all of his past lives, when the wolf shows up, he's like breaking all of the glasses, and then like right before he breaks the last mirror, he's like, and I was just thinking to myself, like, why not speed it up? And then he breaks the last one, and then it was a good like Death was on a mission to kill someone who was rightfully deserving to die kind of thing.
Yep.
And then Puss was like, no, this is incorrect.
He's like, I don't want to die.
Well, not only that, but it is more of like, I don't deserve to be... I would imagine, yes, to be sought out for past mistakes kind of thing, or past arrogance.
It went from I don't want to die just as self-preservation to I have something to protect.
Yeah.
And I cherish the life I'm in.
Yeah.
And I'm respecting death, but I'm not fearing it.
Yep.
And that's what gets Death to pretty much back off after Puss in Boots defeats him.
Yep. And then he's pretty much just like, I'll see you later.
Yep.
So the big bad magical guy comes back out of the briefcase after eating the Alice in Wonderland cookie and is like, I'm so happy that this was the right one.
Yep. Why don't you just explain that fight? Because I'm not gonna lie, I kind of like zoned out during that fight because at that point I was satisfied as a viewer. Yeah. My opinion, Death is like the climax of this movie. This was like got wrapped up in like 2 seconds. So why don't you explain this?
Oh, I got you. So I mean, that's pretty much the end of the fight. Is that he gets the main he gets the scroll, right? And then he's absorbing the star, and then that's when like the bears and Team Friendship work together, but everything's kind of not working. And then that's when Perito does his talk no jutsu. And,
but it doesn't work.
And it doesn't work. And he's like, you think that would work on me? I have no heart. And then he was just like, it wasn't supposed to work. It was all a distraction. And then that's when the team like puts in work on him, and then they rip up the scroll, and then he almost pieces it all together, and then there's this little hole. It's ripped in the scroll, and then he looks through the hole, and then through the hole he sees Jiminy Cricket on the back of a phoenix, and he's like, yeah, and then he ignites the last little bit of it, and then it bursts into flames, and then everything's done, and Jack's defeated. Oh.
Yep. And then
Team Friendship. Woo.
Yep. Team Friendship sits on the hill together, and Puss and Softpaws hold each other's hands and are together now. And then they become outlaws together called Team Friendship, and then the movie ends with them on a ship they stole from the governor, heading towards far, far away.
Full circle back to the guy who they fucked over at the beginning.
Yup. And that's the end of the movie. So we'll what do you think this movie was correctly rated as PG, or do you think it should have been PG-13? Because there was legitimate drama around this. It wasn't that they were angry what was in the film, but parents were angry that they took their kids to go see a PG movie,
and it was more.
They felt like it was way more heavy than they were described, and should have been rated at PG-13. Not that they wouldn't have necessarily taken their kids to that, but it's like, hey, I want to know.
It should have been. I think that it should have been rated PG-13. Simply just because some of the image, and I'm an adult. I know that it's not supposed to scare me. It's a kids movie. I think it should have been PG-13 though, because some of the imagery in this and just like aspect of like Puss in Boots was practically dying of a heart attack inside of the dark forest before he had a therapy dog rest on him. He was because the whole premise of going into the dark forest is that nobody ever comes out, right? And my thinking, the dark forest is also a representation of death. So death is always coming, death will always find you, kind of thing. And if the dog wouldn't have been there, if Perito wouldn't have been there, I'm assuming Puss would have died of a heart attack in the dark forest, right?
Or he would have frozen long enough for actual death to show up and kill him.
Either way, he was dying. And I think that it's that's not meant for kids at all. I think all of the fight scenes were fine. Death was a little over the top, like visually sometimes, and when I mean that, I just mean like I guess I'm saying like the lust for blood that you could see that he exuded.
Yeah, his bloodlust.
I don't think that is child necessary. I think, you know, parents have each their own, you know, they can let their kids whatever. I don't care. But I think it should have been PG-13 personally.
Children shouldn't be thinking
exposed
about death,
of exactly
thinking about having panic attacks.
Yeah, exactly, because that's just gonna it's just gonna help. It's gonna sound kind of fucked up, but it's just gonna help them get into that mindset, which is unhealthy, you know? Because I know that when I was a kid, like seeing those things is like, oh, I've never experienced those things. I wonder what they are. Those are called gateway thoughts, you know? And then that just leads down to rabbit holes of unhealthy thinking, possibly. I don't know. But I think it should have been PG-13, but that's just me. What about you?
I think it's a weak PG-13.
Yeah. I can agree with that.
I don't think it's like a heavy PG-13 for sure. I think it's like it's riding that fence.
Yeah.
I think the biggest
it should have
difference
just been 13 for the precaution kind of thing.
Exactly. I think the thing is, like, I expected going into this movie that was going to be like the jokes or what I was going to like, because like that's what makes you enjoy Shrek as an adult. It's not the story, it's the jokes. Like it's the fact that they have so many jokes. Like even Shrek 2, they pretty much call Fiona easy and a slut.
Yeah. I mean, they also call in the first one, Lord Farquaad, when they're like small, you know, they're making like a penis joke, you know.
Well, and they make a joke about him getting a boner too.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Like, so I expected that to be what targeted me as an audience member. And there was some jokes that were targeted for audience members, but what was more so was the themes in the movie were a lot more heavy-handed than I expected. And I don't think it's inappropriate for a child to see it, but I definitely think PG-13 would have made it so then a parent could have been like, okay,
precaution.
Why is this PG-13?
Yep,
let's take a look
into it. Yeah.
Is this something that I think, because PG doesn't mean only 7-year-olds, but it does mean 7-year-olds, and it doesn't mean just 12-year-olds. Like, I would let my 12-year-old probably watch this. Would I want my 6-year-old to watch this?
No.
Like my nephew, no, I wouldn't. Would I mind like a 12-year-old youngster watching this with me? Yeah, you're fine. You can if you've not you should have an understanding of what death is. Not saying you should contemplate it, but you're old enough to understand these concepts without it freaking you out as a 12-year-old.
Exactly.
But
agree.
I definitely think that it should have been like a week 13 or maybe even a content warning. Maybe.
Yeah, I think if they would have done,
I just think that it, for the themes the movie tackled, despite even though it still wasn't like, I don't think it's like super, I don't think it's like, it could have been a lot worse. Like they still made it a kids movie for sure.
Oh yeah.
But I definitely think that those themes are a little bit more, they're apparent. That's the difference.
Yeah.
Other kids movies have tackled these themes before, but they're a lot less apparent. Yeah. This movie shoves it in your face, and it's very hard to miss what the themes of these movies are about, and that I can understand why some parents would have been upset about it.
I agree, dude.
I enjoyed it, and I think that is a great place to wrap up. So if you enjoyed Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, let us know in the comments. If you thought it was a garbage movie, tell us why. We want your opinions. Thank you for watching. We appreciate you getting this far if you got this far. And you have a great night, great day, great afternoon, wherever the frick you are.
Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Bye-bye.